Yeah, most people. It's kind of a sad thing, but most people get through it all right, too. That's my advice for you.
Thank you.
You wrote another letter to somebody who...
10-second delay, Nerd Squad. It is 8:37 AM PST, Monday, February 10th, 2025. This is a consensual recording of Mystic Gwen pursuant to the instructions of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm not an employee of the FBI, but I've been authorized to state I am an informant since the last week of June. There is quite a bit of updates if you haven't been updated or stayed abreast of the situation since February 4th, 2025. You may have noticed in January, nobody heard anything from me except for the ongoing police reports. That is correct. That was per the FBI's instructions.
Do you think that the parents sometimes don't think...
And there is a second video which continues the first video / podcast that these federal felons from the North Everett Precinct and the Snohomish County Prosecutor's Office et al. Has removed from every platform, indoor, disabled its functionality, all illegally, with no immunity, absolute lack of immunity. And as a result, I made a YouTube live stream titled Mystic Gwen versus the North Everett Precinct of Fraudsters, the Stalker, the Extortionist et al. That runs for just under 2 hours. And I think it was published in December of 2024. You can search for it right here. You'll want to listen to that. And then there is a part 2, which includes everything that has been filed since then.
I wrote a book and I think I would say the same.
From February 4th, 2025 to as recently as this last Saturday, February 8th. And there is a video on my YouTube channel titled 2-8 5:20 p.m. PT space II Part 2, Mystic Gwen versus the North Everett Precinct of Fraudsters, the Stalker. And I couldn't finish the entire title because of a character limitation on YouTube. So again, it is now 8:39 a.m. PST, February 10th. I am going to play a prior recordings intro where I go over everything the FBI wants me to go over without having to read it myself again today. So here it goes. Let me pause This American Life.
In the title.
Here we go.
So now it's just turned to 12:07 a.m. PST.
All right, it's actually 8:40 a.m.
The preceding live stream was ended after midnight already. And this one, even though it says it began at midnight sharp, actually began at 12:06 a.m. Now, there is a couple of things to go over. First off, if you, for any reason, find that this YouTube video ends without a explicit end time from me and the information that a new live stream will be commencing in 90 seconds or less, that I didn't end it. And the federal felons, i.e. the well-cooked hams, the child abusers, stalkers, hackers, thieves, fraudsters, hostage holders, domestic terrorists in the condo directly above my home of 13 years are responsible, and or one of their co-conspirators is. And as a result, because of their rampant crime spree and ongoing escalation due to their downward spiral, leading them to full accountability under the law, and in many instances, prison is in effect. Since February 1st, I've only been adding a selfie of myself to the end of these YouTube live streams that I personally am ending, and that the federal felons upstairs aren't ending preemptively to add multiple additional counts from that one criminal act, such as obstruction of justice, such as evidence tampering, such as witness intimidation, such as intimidation of an FBI informant, i.e. witness tampering, the Class A felony. That's the one you're all looking at. Okay, that being said, I have no plans to end this live stream before noon today. Again, it's Monday. It's currently 12:09 a.m., even though this video said that it started at 12 a.m. There is a part 2 to Mystic Gwen versus the North Everett Precinct of fraudsters, the stalker, the extortionist, et al. Part 1 is just under 2 hours long, and it fills you in on all of the information up to December 29th that is most pertinent. Part 2 went up after the third addendum to February's judicial notice / police reports, and that went up reports on Saturday. Actually, I think it was Saturday. So I am going to play you a recording now that only covers the addendum / police report from this Saturday, not the one that came from the 4th, for instance, of February, but that is available. If you go to my YouTube live stream channel, you will see a video from this past Saturday, February 8th, which literally is titled Part 2 PT space II Part 2 Mystic Gwen versus the North Everett Precinct of Fraudsters, the Stalker, and I couldn't quite fit the extortionist into the title. And you're going to want to click on that, even though it looks like it runs for almost 12 hours. You just need to listen to the first 45 minutes therein. But right now, the FBI has me under orders to play this 15-minute recording that I'm about to push play on. And I need to pop over to the preceding live stream and add a selfie because I did indeed end it. So pay attention. Happy Monday. The well-cooked hammies had plans for today. I wonder if they still do in their desperation. Remember, these attorneys facing federal disbarment, they won't take no for an answer as far as somebody else breaking into my house, because they're all about to have their kidnapping charges, which is multiple felonies. Every one of them is looking at for their planning, facilitating, premeditation, etc. Well, it's going to turn into aggravated kidnapping charges, etc. Well, it's going to turn into aggravated kidnapping February 23rd if you don't completely undo everything you've done and paid in full, and we all know you won't be doing that.
Verified.
So you will be.
The FBI says it's a good thing
Here's
for
the
your
recording.
convictions
Have a happy
and prosecution.
Monday. And stay the fuck away from my private property like you fools have been told every single month for 17 months. You sacks of shit.
Touche.
Okay, we are going to do a recording of the latest addendum / police report. I'm not recording this one on Twitter since we know that Unit207 has effectively destroyed that as well in their ongoing pattern of obstruction of justice and evidence tampering. Third addendum to Formal Judicial Notice, filed February 8, 2025 at 7:12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Original filing, date of original filing, February 4th, 2025, 10:08 a.m. PST. Previous addendums, February 6, 2025, 7 a.m. PST. February 7th, 2025, 1:45 p.m. PST. To Snohomish County Superior Court, North Everett Precinct, Snohomish County Sheriff's Office, Snohomish County Prosecutors, et al., and forwarded to FBI. From Lynette Renee Hansen, aka Mystic Gwen. Subject: supplemental information regarding further criminal activities, escalation of threats, evidence tampering, continued child abuse, and incurred penalties. February 8th, 2025. Demand for immediate action and notice of intent to seek maximum penalties under law. Maximum penalties is the third addendum to the Formal Judicial Notice filed on February 4th, 2025 at 10:08 a.m. PST and previously supplemented. It provides further crucial information regarding subsequent events, the continued escalation of the criminal conspiracy, the blatant and ongoing obstruction of justice, the endangerment of my children, further acts of retaliation, and the accrual of additional financial penalties against those perpetrating these crimes. This addendum also serves as a formal police report documenting these new crimes. 1. Incorporation of prior filings by reference. All facts, invoices, statements, and incorporated documents referenced in the original formal judicial notice of February 4th, 2025, the addendums of February 6th and 7th, 2025, and all police reports filed by Lynette Renee Hansen from June 2024 to the present date, and any future date are hereby incorporated by reference as if fully set forth herein. This specifically includes, but is not limited to, Declaration of Lynette Renee Hansen, aka Mystic Gwen, dated December 14th, 2024, revised 8:07 p.m. PST due to unlawful tampering. Addendum to Declaration dated December 19th, 2024. Addendum and Amendment to Declaration dated December 29th, 2024. Tort claim filed August 14th, 2024, case number 10-500-5934, served upon the North Everett Precinct, Snohomish County Prosecutors et al. This document details planned felonies, named conspirators, prior child abuse, and plans for super felonies. The dated signage referenced within and photographed for that last page predated even that filing. It is to be noted per that tort claim, those named within it and their co-conspirators had planned to not only have the actionable kidnappings take place using my multiple times convicted stalker and abuser and my extortionist mother, but they also, and I quote, had, quote, super felonies planned. All police reports filed since June 2024 by me, Lynette Renee Hansen, aka Mystic Gwen. 2. Correction to the previous addendum from February 7th, 2025. Any reference in the February 7th, 2025 addendum to January 4th, 2025 is hereby corrected to read February 4th, 2025 at 10:08 a.m. PST. 3. Supplemental information, subsequent criminal acts and escalation. A. Status of front door and illegal detention. My front door has remained continuously closed and locked since January 2nd, 2025, per explicit FBI instructions. The sole exception was the forced entry on January 29th, 2025, perpetrated by my disabled sons and illegally kidnapped sons, under the direction of this criminal conspiracy. The FBI has instructed me to keep my door closed until the perpetrators are apprehended or until they attempt another illegal entry. As of today, February 8th, 2025, I have been illegally detained within my own residence for 184 days since August 6, 2024. B. February 7th, 2025, evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, and continued threats. Livestream interference. While preparing and filing the previous addendum and police report on February 7th, 2025, individuals associated with Unit 207 criminally and illegally terminated 4 separate YouTube live streams. They also retroactively erased over 1 hour of footage from certain recordings. These actions constitute blatant evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, and witness intimidation. It is strongly suspected that these actions were taken to either A, create a false impression of personal service or my voluntary exit from my residence, or B, to conceal evidence of their planning and preparation for their next planned break-in and other felonies. 12:50 p.m. Knocking. Individuals associated with Unit 207 engaged in aggravated stalking, harassment, and criminal trespass. C. February 8th, 2025, 5:30 a.m. PST. Confirmation of imminent break-in. As of approximately 5:30 a.m. PST on February 8th, 2025, a male in Unit 207 confirmed plans for an imminent break-in involving numerous officers from the North Everett Precinct. This is consistent with the ongoing threats and plans that have been documented for over a year and specifically reported to the North Everett Precinct, Snohomish County Prosecutors, DCYF, and others. The conspirators in Unit 207 have stated that this needs to occur prior to February 23rd because the attorneys involved, at least 2 of whom are facing federal disbarment, are aware that this conspiracy will result in additional and more serious charges being filed. D. Prior knowledge and warnings. It is crucial to emphasize that the North Everett Precinct, the Snohomish County Prosecutor's Office, DCYF, and named individuals, including Richard Garcia and Erica Owens, have been repeatedly warned about their illegal activities and the consequences thereof. These warnings include 11 months of cease and desist letters directly sent to the involved parties and their revolving cast of third, fourth, and fifth parties, beginning in September 2023, 11 months prior to their illegal premeditated felonies since August 2024. August 7th and August 13th, 2024, signage. Dated signs photographed and included in the August 14th, 2024 tort claim were placed on my property, explicitly addressed to the North Everett Precinct. The Owens, Richard Garcia, DCYF and Unit 207, prohibiting trespassing, knocking without a warrant, stalking, and other criminal activities. These signs were in addition to signs that had been in place for over a year prior, and that the FBI had me add them to the last page of the August 14th, 2024 tort claim. August 14th, 2024 tort claim. This document was made after 11 months of cease and desist letters failed to do anything, and the kidnappings, illegal detainment, etc. were planned for the weeks after. This document detailed the planned felonies, named the conspirators, and outlined the financial penalties for their actions, including their defenses, i.e. obstruction / conspiracy / etc. Numerous police reports, repeatedly filed police reports documenting the ongoing threats and criminal activities have been consistently rejected by the North Everett Precinct, including before their actionable kidnappings reported for weeks and months prior, published about in December 2023 on my personal Twitter account, x.com/realmysticgwen. Direct communication. All conspirators except Erica and John Owens were explicitly informed beginning August 6, 2024, that I was not authorized to communicate with them, read anything from them, or cooperate with them in any way. The Owens were informed shortly after their involvement in the second actionable kidnapping. Per the FBI's instructions, cease and desist letters and August 14th tort claim filed in case number 105005934. Despite these warnings, the conspirators have sent over 48 individuals to my door and engaged in constant exterior stalking just since the first week of August. They did the same thing for the 11 months prior when they were getting cease and desist letters. Involvement of Everett Public School District. The potential involvement of the Everett Public School District, an institution with which I had a long and positive relationship as a art docent, special ed para-volunteer, enhanced teaching volunteer, and donor, is noted with grave concern. This highlights the sprawling nature of the conspiracy and its willingness to corrupt and exploit various institutions. I volunteered for an average of 40 hours various from 2012/2013 to the start of 2020 and donated tens of thousands to the school district. Podcast interference. Unit 207 and or their co-conspirators have blocked my podcast from being uploaded to Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Audible. They have also had x.com block all access via my dedicated podcast Twitter, x.com/mysticgwenpod. I will create a YouTube live stream part 2 of my prior, titled Mystic Gwen versus the North Everett Precinct of Fraudsters, the Stalker, the Extortionist, et al. By 8 p.m. PST today.
I'm going to pause that there and just reiterate that video was already uploaded because the recording you're listening to is from the date that it was filed, the 8th, 2 days ago. So part 2 is the third video that precedes this. It's titled 2-8, sorry, I just got hiccups, 5:20 p.m. PT space 2 Mystic Gwen versus the North Everett Precinct of Fraudsters, the Stalker, and then remember, I couldn't quite fit the Extortionist because of the character limit or et al. Back to the recording.
Today. FBI timeline and intent. The FBI informed me in December 2024 of their plans to incarcerate officers involved in the conspiracy in March 2025. Subject to change based on the conspirators' actions. Unit 207 statements indicate they believe they have no alternative but to proceed with their planned illegal entry, arrest, committal, or kidnapping before February 23rd, as the involved attorneys are aware of the increased severity of charges they will face after that date. 4. Financial penalties updated. The following financial penalties previously invoiced and contractually agreed upon are reiterated and updated. 100,000 per day for each day of my ongoing illegal detention, now totaling over 180 days. 10 million for any attempted illegal entry into my residence, increased to 25 million if I was asleep at the time. This penalty applies to the recent breaking and entering on January 29th, 2025. 10 million for the use of my sons and/or for coercing them to commit any illegal acts, including the January 29th breaking and entering. Doubling of all penalties if fraudulent court orders are used in conjunction with any illegal act. Quadrupling of these fees for any of the above criminal acts if they are perpetrated within 7 days of a rejected police report regarding said acts. 10 million for the rejection of legitimate police reports constituting obstruction of justice. This applies to all reports rejected to date. 10 million for each instance of illegally terminating a YouTube live stream. This applies to all instances to date. 10 million for each and every instance of stalking. 10 million for each and every instance of harassment. 10 million for each and every instance of ADA violations. 10 million for each and every instance of civil rights violations. 10 million for the incident of stalking, harassment, ADA violations, criminal trespass, and witness intimidation on February 7th, 2025 at 12:50 p.m. Additional penalties for February 7th events subject to quadrupling. The 40,000 for the knocking, or the 40 million for the knocking and 40 million for the obstruction based on the 2 rejected reports. Additional penalties for live stream termination. 4 terminations times 10 million equals 40 million. The actions documented in this addendum and those rejected in prior reports significantly increase the financial liability of the conspirators. 5. Conclusion. This addendum provides further irrefutable evidence of the aggravated and ongoing criminal conspiracy targeting me, a designated FBI informant. The individuals involved, including officers of the North Everett Precinct, members of the Snohomish County Prosecutor's Office, occupants of Unit 207, and their expanding network of co-conspirators demonstrates a complete and utter disregard for the law, for my rights, and for the well-being of my children. Their attempts to obstruct justice, tamper with evidence, and intimidate a federal witness are not only failing, but are actively strengthening the case against them.
Verified.
The FBI maintains that anyone and/or everyone sticking to the perjurious and fraudulent proclamation that any of their actions were, quote, reactive and not the premeditated, illegal, and consistently reported felonies that they were and are, will be the recipients of the longest prison sentences.
Verified.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation is fully aware.
Fully aware. Fully aware.
This document serves as formal legal notice of these crimes and a demand for immediate action to protect my safety and ensure accountability. Sincerely, Lynette Renee Hansen, aka Mystic Gwen. Date February 8th, 2025. Time 7:12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Okay, it is actually now 12:28 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Monday, February 10th. Nerd Squad, the YouTube interface is reflecting as 208 published videos. We know that's the incorrect number. And I am clicking on the very live stream that everybody is listening to right now to make sure there is audio and that we are indeed connected. It is actually 9:01 a.m. PST right now. It is actually 9:01
Hey, Nerd Squad.
PST right
It
now.
is Monday, February 10th. Most pertinent. Part 2, plural of additional financial penalty.
Okay, we have audio and we are connected. Nerd Squad.
I'm refreshing this tab so that it should be in line with what I am saying right now. And let's see if it's in line with what I am saying right now.
Okay, everybody, Nerd Squad, 211 videos showing as set for public viewing consumption right now, which I believe is one below what it should say. At 9:02 a.m., screenshot taken on the Lenovo ThinkPad. Those of you may be wondering if there's anything new to update. Nothing that hasn't already been reported. The imbeciles upstairs still have plans for today. And everything you just heard about is all still very much part of their agenda and itinerary. One thing I can say is that the FBI says they would love to change the kidnapping charges to aggravated, which suggests to me that these fools may continue to have my kids kidnapped for longer than the 23rd. Remember, if this live stream ends for any reason without me explicitly stating the end time and letting you know that a new live stream will be commencing in 90 seconds or less, that I didn't end it, and that I don't know that it's been ended, and or I'm attempting to initiate it and being prevented, and or I'm asleep, and or another count of breaking and entering has taken place, which was supposed to be concurrent with them cutting off the live stream, but now that they've shown that they can cut off a live stream and erase over an hour of recording in a single video, like they displayed on Saturday. I just can't tell you why it is they'd be ending it. Just remember, if you don't hear an explicit end time and the commencement of a new live stream, I didn't end it. And if you come to my live stream channel and you see an image of my living room or my kids at the beach from many years ago on a video published since February 1st, that's important to note, only since February 1st. Those are videos they've criminally and illegally shut off, and in some instances, erased over an hour of recording from.
Erased over an hour of recording from.
All of which they will be charged for.
Erased over an hour of recording from. Erased over an hour of recording from. Erased over an hour of recording from.
Okay, I was listening to This American Life, the latest episode, which is a repeat from a long, long time ago. I am speculating Ira Glass got dumped, he and his wife divorced, so he's back in the dating game. Because I don't know why else he would choose an old archived episode that is just so very much about breaking up.
And book that would make it, but not a whole series, you know?
You just want to write a book and make a lot of money.
No, not money, just famous.
Okay. Okay, Betsy, thank you. Good night.
Okay, good night.
So that's the tape from 20 years ago. You're in the studio with us now. Tell us your name.
Betsy Allison Walter.
How old are you?
I just turned 29.
And you're working?
I am. I have been a elementary
And
school teacher
you're
for
working?
the past 7 years. I am. I
How
have
many times over the years do you think you've heard this taped interview?
probably 12, a dozen. Because I didn't hear it for a while. I think I heard it again when I was about 22, 23. Every time I've had a boyfriend, I've played it for him.
And each time it's got to be different. How's it been changing for you?
Yeah, recently was the first change.
Really?
I used to only hear it with my exact inner monologue from when I was there in the studio. And when I heard certain things, I can still remember the exact thoughts running through my head. I remember it very clearly. I remember.
So just to be clear, I'm not a member of the bar, and I don't know much about criminal law. I know plenty about civil law because of my multiple times convicted stalker and abuser being a vexatious criminal litigant across the nation for 16 years. But I don't know much about criminal law. But I can say, the FBI authorized me to say it, that yes, indeed, they would love to make those of you facing multiple felony kidnapping charges, including Mrs. 80 plus years in prison, who they've been confident will be charged with multiple counts of that, including for her involvement on the August 17th kidnapping via her co-conspirator, my multiple times convicted stalker and abuser, a man who's been arrested over 100 times in 8 different states for beating up other girlfriends,
myself, pregnant strangers, driving drunk, having cocaine, and attacking and fighting with men all over the country. He's literally banned from Canada for life. Anyway, the FBI wants her to be charged with aggravated kidnapping. So since everything's on a need-to-know basis with me, I'm speculating perhaps just based on the FBI's comment on that. And that's the only thing I'm basing it on. Perhaps all of the plans for today are going to be abandoned because the FBI is doing some things with other people who are cooperating with the FBI in this investigation to set up people like Mrs. 80 plus years with everything she needs to secure aggravated kidnapping charges, which, according to the FBI, won't kick in until the week of February 23rd. So that's pure speculation. But again, I've been authorized to say that, yes, those of you looking at felony kidnapping charges, the FBI, yes, would love to allow you to commit more crimes in order to, yes, be convicted of aggravated kidnapping counts later this month. A couple weeks. Not even a couple weeks. Less than 2 weeks, 13 days from now. Less than 2 weeks, 13 days from now. Okay, that's it. Back to the podcast.
I remember thinking that you were just another grown-up, offering your advice. All these grown-ups kept telling me things, but I felt like I knew what they were going to say. They're going to say, it'll be okay, and people fall out of love, but that wasn't what I wanted to hear. Like, it's just, I remember everything. It was, I don't know how. And then recently, I think it was probably when I graduated college when I heard it again. I heard it as an adult, and it was so heartbreaking. I didn't think it was sad when it was me. It was just what was going on. And it made me sad to hear pain in my voice, confusion. And now I hear it even differently as an educator. I hear it as, what would I say to her?
And looking back at that moment, did you really want the truth? Or did you want things to be well again and whole again?
I don't believe that I wanted what the truth really was, but I wanted what I had created the truth to be in my head. I wanted them to say something to the fact that, oh, we just need a time apart, and of course we'll come back together. I wanted what I thought the truth was. If I had heard the real truth, I think that it would have been devastating.
Your dad was fooling around?
Mm-hmm. And my mom did an amazing job of never, ever putting any blame on him, of always being supportive of us having a relationship. But if she had said the truth, I couldn't have a relationship with him. I would have been too angry.
Okay, let's imagine this. Your advice just to that 8-year-old Betsy, who was you.
I do grapple with this. It's hard because I know exactly what I wanted to hear when I was 8. I think I would tell her that, you know what, I would actually say, this is probably how your life is going to be. Your parents made this choice for you. And now, instead of questioning and wondering for so long why this choice was made, how are you going to live your life now knowing this is your life? I think I still know myself, and I would have been persistent wanting answers regardless. But I do think that I needed to feel less helpless.
Well, we first broadcast today's show in 2007. Betsy Allison Walter is now Betsy New Schneider. She has now been teaching elementary school for 25 years. She has 3 kids of her own.
Wow. We're old. I probably heard that episode when it was new. For the first time.
Act 3, let no court put asunder. Now we have this example of somebody trying to make breakups less horrible than they are. Barry Berkman used to be like any divorce lawyer. He fought for his clients, he tried to get them big settlements, but he came to believe that what he was doing actually was not so good for most of his clients, which, was kind of a big problem. Here's the kind of thing he would see. Guy comes in, ready for a divorce.
his wife had a lot of money. They had worked out a deal, but they did it on their own without seeing lawyers.
What would they decide?
And what they decided was that in order for him, he was a musician, didn't have that much money, but in order for him to live close to her and to be able to see the kids, which they both wanted, she was going to give him enough money to purchase a small co-op. And it was great. They were both happy as could be. They were ready to do it. They were told to see lawyers. He came to see us. We were fine with it. We said, sure, this looks good. You did a good job. She went to see a lawyer. No way. How can you give him that much? It's not right.
That's what her lawyer was saying.
Absolutely. For the lawyer, it was too much because he had an argument which could theoretically end up giving her the greater part of her separate property.
Right.
She ended up listening to the lawyer. We ended up with a custody fight as well as a divorce fight.
Wait, and is that because the money fight got so bitter at some point?
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah, then they started fighting over the kids, which they hadn't fought over at all.
Well, wait, how did that kick in? Like what was the moment where it went from being just about money to being about the
Oh,
kids?
Ira, go watch
What
Kramer
happened
versus
was the
Kramer.
parties got so
How did it
angry
happen?
at each
Remember he
other.
told you.
That they started quibbling
That's a
about
good movie, by the way.
everything.
If you haven't seen Kramer versus
So-
Kramer.
If he had a gig and couldn't be home on time one evening, she decided he was an unfit parent. If she was spending too much time with her new boyfriend, which this guy decided wasn't appropriate, she became an unfit parent. So the parties ended up fighting not only about money, but about the kids. Used up a good bit of her vast inheritance in the case. And in the end, she ended up buying them the same, or similar co-op in a similar neighborhood as the one she would have in the first place. But it took a couple of years, embittered everyone. And you had to think, was this worthwhile? Did it have to happen?
Adversarial style divorces make up a ton of all divorce proceedings around the country. And Barry felt like most of those cases ended up like this one. Incredibly expensive, taking a huge emotional toll on everybody, damaging children. So after 15 years of doing these cases like this, he started looking for a different way. And he found something called collaborative divorce. In collaborative divorce, each spouse gets a lawyer. And then the spouses and the lawyers sit down in a room together to work out some kind of agreement. But under the rules of collaborative divorce, if one of the lawyers thinks that the other side is being intransigent or unreasonable, not only can he not threaten to go to court, if it does go to court, he has to give up the case. He has to give the case to another lawyer to do. So the lawyers have an incentive to work everything out. So, okay, they all sit down together, the spouses and the lawyers. And Barry Brickman says that even though the spouses enter this situation with good intentions of working everything out, the biggest obstacle he has is something very simple.
I think often what happens is couples in conflict lose the ability to listen to each other.
And so you find yourself very often saying to your own client, no, listen to what they're saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so one
Not
of the
to
things,
agree with it, but at least to understand it.
right.
That's the whole question. To recognize that your point of view doesn't necessarily invalidate your spouse's point of view.
You're saying the most important thing people need to do is simply just listen to each other and try to get along.
Well, I would say listen to each other. Yeah, I don't know about getting along, but
They don't have to try to get along.
certainly listening goes a long way.
Do things get so reasonable that you get people listening to each other well enough that people eventually just get back together?
I've had that happen once.
What happened?
What happened was we had people who simply couldn't listen to each other. He became very, very busy in his own law practice. She felt she was losing him. Part of it was they couldn't find the time to talk to each other.
But this collaborative divorce process makes you actually show up to meetings with your spouse and your lawyers and start talking. And as these two people talked, they started to see each other's side of things. Maybe he hadn't been around enough. Maybe she could have been more supportive.
I think the turning point came when they were talking about what to do with the house. And each one kind of recognized that they didn't really want to be living anywhere without the other person.
Usually, of course, the spouses do not get back together. When the process works, Barry Brickman says, at least they end up feeling a little better about each other. So people ever say at the end of this process, they appreciate your help and they're glad for the results, but they're still full of pain.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get rid of the pain. The pain is there. Long marriages, the pain is there. I think going through this process enables people to get in touch with that pain and the real sadness that they're experiencing, which is sometimes covered up by their anger.
You're saying that at the end of this process, actually just going through the dividing of assets, which is really in the end all you're trying to do, actually makes people's anger dissipate when you do it this way?
I think going through the process where we reach, and it's not just the assets. The assets are usually relatively easy. Don't forget we have the kids and the parenting and decision making, and that's often a lot tougher. I think going through the process where people reach points of understanding, where maybe for the first time we get a glimpse of where the other person is coming from. And so all of a sudden they realize, you know what, it's not necessary to demonize this person anymore. And when they have those moments of understanding, it goes a long way toward helping them get on with the rest of their lives, actually.
Barry Berkman is a lawyer in New York and a member of the New York Association of Collaborative Professionals, which he helped found. Collaborative divorce, by the way, was invented by a Minneapolis lawyer named Stuart Webb. Act 4, divorce is rough. We close our show today with this vignette of just how lost you feel when you lose somebody from Meryl Markoff, recorded on stage at UNCABARET in Los Angeles.
Today, our friend Paul came to the house in a near dissociative state of He sat down on the big red couch in the living room, and I offered him a vodka as he started detailing his anguish. Up until yesterday, if you'd asked me if my marriage was a happy one, I would have said yes, he said, choking back tears. And then last night, out of the blue, my wife comes in and tells me she wants a divorce. As Paul spoke, Andy's dog, Puppy Boy, a skinny brown and black Tijuana shepherd, approached with his mouth full of a large, black, completely deflated soccer ball. He placed the flat, wet piece of rubber gently on Paul's knee, and then sat down right in front of him to wait for the games to begin. Paul was too upset to notice. She told me she wants to start seeing other men, Paul said, tears welling up in his eyes. And that's not even the worst of it. Today I found out from friends they've already seen her around town with another guy. They didn't want to say anything until now. He began to cry. And as he did, Puppy Boy attempted to apply a little additional pressure by picking up the deflated piece of rubber off Paul's knee and moving it to a new spot, a little further up Paul's leg. But Paul had the bad manners to be completely preoccupied by his own tragedy. I have no idea what I'm going to do, he said, as Puppy Boy moved in a little closer and began staring a little harder, his eyes going intently from the black, flat rubber thing that was now balancing on Paul's thigh to Paul's face, and then back to the flat, black rubber thing, as if to help Paul out in case he was having trouble locating it. It's been just emotionally devastating, Paul continued. Everything I've worked for has fallen apart. And what happens to me now? Am I going to lose everything? My house, my cars, my savings? He broke down and began to sob, the only time I've ever seen this incredibly stoic man cry, which was a signal to Puppy Boy that the game was finally about to get going. So he picked up the deflated soccer ball off Paul's thigh and moved it to the most conveniently located spot of all, the very center of Paul's lap. Then he sat back down in front of Paul and resumed his intense staring. So he kept doing this for the whole 2 hours that Paul was at our house. Later that night, after Paul had gone home to pick up the pieces of his shattered existence, I began to wonder what Puppy Boy might have to say to him for himself about this behavior. So I asked him. Puppy Boy replies, "Hello, new-seated person. I am Puppy Boy, and I can see that you are very upset for some reason, but I have something on my mind. I'm going out on a limb here and tell you that it is the most important thing I have ever had to say. And it is this. I have placed a thing on you that you must throw." If you look down now, you will see it. It is that large flat thing that is balancing on your knee. Please listen to me when I tell you that this is an opportunity you cannot pass up. By the way, you have noticed that your knee has a big, flat, wet thing balancing on it, haven't you? Or are you so busy sobbing and weeping and talking about yourself that you are having trouble seeing it? Here's a hint. I'm staring at it right now. So if you can imagine a laser beam coming from my eyes and then follow it down to the spot on your leg where it is focused, it'll lead you right to it. The only other possible explanation for your puzzling lack of interest is that you are purposefully ignoring me. And why would you do that? Especially since you are really hurting yourself more than you are hurting me. Because let's face it, you're the one who's passing up a great opportunity. And by a great opportunity, I'm referring to the chance to have the kind of fun that everyone dreams of having. I speak of the chance to throw a big, flat, stretchy, wet thing. And guess where it is right now? Throw it now or live a life of regret. I mean, I can't stop you if you'd rather just listen to yourself talk. Wife, 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 she did this, she did that. Really fascinating. For Christ's sakes, look into my eyes and play along. Pick up the big, flat, wet thing. Pick it up, pick up the big, flat, wet thing. Pick it up, pick it up, pick up the big, flat, wet thing. Can you hear me okay? Pick it up, pick it up, pick up the big, flat, wet thing. Can you hear me okay? You know, maybe if you had listened a little better during your marriage, your wife wouldn't want a divorce. Did you ever think of that? It wouldn't surprise me if you never threw the thing she brought you either. Thank you.
Nora Marco at Uncabaret in Los Angeles. Meryl's most recent book is a graphic novel, We Saw Scenery. She's also in the upcoming season of the TV show Hacks. Thanks to Grade Miller of Uncabaret.
I love you, and you love him, and I sort of love him because I love everything you love. Then he stopped loving you. Glory, hallelujah, somehow you stopped loving me. I don't know why I love you, I just do, I really do. It doesn't do me any good, in fact it does me bad. Cause you're oh so gone and I'm oh so sad.
Well, Bergen was produced today by Robin Simeon and myself with Alex Bloomberg, Jane Marie, John Jeter, Sarah Candy, Lisa Pollock, Alyssa Shipp, and Nancy Updike. Our senior producer for today's show is Julie Snyder. Production up from Seth Lind, Olivia Navarro, PJ Vogt, and Alvin Meleth. Music help for today's show from Jessica Hopper. Help on today's rerun from Angela Gervasi and Stone Nelson. Special thanks today to NPR. Noah Adams' interview from 1987 was originally broadcast on National Public Radio's All Things Considered, where I was a proud staffer and was used with permission of NPR. Thanks to Ellen Weiss. Thanks to the musicians who played Starley's song in Act 1, Joe McGinty on keyboard, Jeremy Chatsky on bass and electric guitar, Julia Greenberg on vocals and acoustic guitar, and Natalie Weiss sings backup, Starley Kine on tambourine. When we first ran the show, we invited listeners to take the raw tracks of Starley's song and mix their own versions. The response was kind of incredible. 129 entries. You can hear the winners of our breakup song contest, including the version you are hearing right now by We Were Pirates at our website, thisamericanlife.org. This American Life is delivered to public radio stations by PRX, the Public Radio Exchange. Thanks as always to our program's co-founder.
By ads outside the UK.
At Fred Meyer Pharmacy, our pharmacists are vaccine experts. Don't know you can keep being an expert with a VSP into choosing your eye doctor.
I walked across the road and I saw a gentleman with an asthma.
How you enroll is up to you. Make the best decisions for your vision at the eye doctor's office. Make the best decisions for your online with VSP individual vision plans.
I walked across the road and I saw a gentleman with an Aston Martin, and I asked him, what skills do you possess that's allowed you to afford this car? His advice was to study hard in school, get experience abroad if I can, like genuine hard work. After the conversation, I walked off, and then he pulled up beside me in his car and pulled out like a wad of cash from his side pocket and gave me £40 for asking him a question.
Wow.
Yeah. I was £40 richer in Kensington walking around, but asking people on the streets wasn't working, so I decided to go and knock on people's doors.
As a teenager, Reggie Nelson decided he wanted to change his family's fortunes by asking anyone he could one simple question: how do wealthy people get so rich? It was a quest motivated by some time in a jail cell and reality TV that would lead him to some extraordinary chance encounters. You're listening to Lives Less Ordinary from the BBC World Service with me, Tommy Dixon, bringing you inspiring stories that might just change your life too. Reggie is now a high flyer at the world's largest asset management company. But growing up in London, life wasn't always easy. Money would be a constant worry, and Reggie often witnessed domestic violence between his parents. So just a heads up before we start.
So I grew up with two parents, my mum and my dad, my sister who's 2 years older than me. And growing up was okay for the most part, but growing up was challenging at the same time because they were both heavily addicted to alcohol. The family dynamic at home, albeit okay, was quite harsh at times. There would be a lot of arguments, like tons of words of war, things being thrown around the house. The verbal turned physical a lot of the time.
Is there any particular moment that you remember of that time?
So I was going to school by myself quite early on, and I remember one particular day I came home and I saw my mum on the kitchen floor with a cigarette butt on the table and a beer can on the table as well, just like passed out. And then I had to like help her up, take her to her room, sober her up, and just make sure that she was like okay. And that was a hard moment for me, just having that image. It's still vivid in my head today. And the arguments as well, I'm just thinking back to younger Reggie, like there was times when my dad threw like a house phone at my mum's head and missed it narrowly. And if you walk into my flat where I used to live, there's still a dent in the wall from where the phone hit the wall. Like it was never fixed, and the dent is still there, even until today. My mum will try and leave the house. My dad would hold scissors to her neck and say, like, "You're not leaving." There'll be fist fights, like blood gushing from both their faces. Where I felt the saddest was probably seeing the fist fights and like when blood was involved and all of those things. And because of everything that was happening at home, as soon as I got into my house from school, I'd go straight back outside. And lots of people around my estate that were the same age as me, similar interests as me, young guys interested in things like football, playing out. But there was a lot of times when we probably had too much time on our hands. It was very easy to be dragged left and right into different things if you weren't like really headstrong. So yeah,
I can talk for myself. I was heavily swayed by what my older brother was saying. I know that you said that you had an older sister, but you mentioned quite a lot of the guys on your estate. Were those guys your role models?
Yeah, for the most part. So where I lived, you almost had three avenues, right? You either became a footballer, musician, or unfortunately you went down the route of crime. And I was good at football from a young age. Like I would play with people my age and then realize that I was like better than people my age and then go play with the older guys. And in terms of life role models, there weren't many life role models like what I have today, right? What I have today, I've got exceptional reference points. It wasn't like that when I was growing up. So you kind of just gravitated towards the people that you saw as the coolest, or the people that the girls wanted to be around, or the people that had the most money, or the people that had the trendiest clothes or the best trainers. Those are the people that you saw as your role models. And when you got closer to them, you realize that they weren't doing like the positive things in order to get that. They were kind of involved in, say, illegal activities or causing havoc on the streets, and they were getting involved in the negative things that were happening, and that was kind of funding what they were doing.
I know you mentioned criminality. Like what sort of stuff were these guys doing?
They would carry weapons, sell drugs. They would get involved in fights. Some would do robberies. It was really dependent on what was happening. So there was like a slight feud between the areas that I lived in. So like it was like you couldn't go to certain areas because this person had a dispute with that person, right? So depending on what was happening will depend on the criminal activities that were happening.
At that point in your life, you were still pretty young.
Yeah, I was. I don't even think I was a teenager at that point.
Yeah,
like 11. Yeah, younger than teenagers.
Did you really understand what was going on during that time or not?
I thought everything was normal. Like it's only when I not left London, but I was out of London for the most part for 2 years, from 16 to 18. I think staying outside of London and seeing life outside of London, you realize that a lot of the stuff that you experience wasn't actually normal. So having two alcoholic parents isn't normal, and not having visibility into sectors and things away from music, football, and crime isn't normal. Seeing someone get stabbed isn't normal, and seeing fights and people being hit over the head with numerous weapons and all of the things that you saw when you were younger, you realize that, oh, this isn't a normal thing.
How were you processing that at a young age?
I don't think I had a conscious way of processing it. I think naturally I probably put all my energy into football, and that was sort of my escape. And although recreationally, even when I'm playing now, I feel a sense of weight lifted off. I switch away from everything that I'm concentrating on or focusing on. If there's anything that's kind of stressing me out a little bit when I'm playing football, it's all gone away. And it's a nice feeling afterwards. And I think when I was younger, that's probably how I felt when I was playing football. So although there was a lot of things happening, and I was playing a lot more than I was playing football almost every day. So every day I had an opportunity to unwind, switch off from things that were happening. So I think that was probably the best way that I used to focus and to cope with it. From year 7, I would say, that's when I thought, yeah, I'm gonna pursue this thing and become a professional footballer.
You pretty much had your whole life like set like in your mind.
Yeah, everything was set around. Like I would sell sweets and drinks and stuff in school. I was like a mini entrepreneur in school, and everything that I made would just be reinvested back into football, be it football boots or travel up and down the country, or like when you watch football and they're walking into the change rooms for the game, they've got their headphones on and stuff, and they're walking in. I was like, I want to be like that. So I remember I'd save my money. I got Beats headphones. I was walking into school. I tried to like walk in the footsteps of footballers. So everything that I would make, I would just like reinvest it back into my football.
But you're not a footballer, so somewhere along the line, things happened. Things changed.
Yeah.
At some point, you got arrested, didn't you?
I got arrested when I think it was 12. I had 2 groups of friends. One group of friends in school, one group of friends outside of school. The ones outside of school were the real bad boys, but I was smart enough to stay away from what they were doing because I saw how bad it was. As in, like, you saw drugs, you stay away from it. I was like, I've always been quite calculated in that sense. But my friends in school, because they weren't like super bad, I didn't know where the line was with them, and they didn't know where the line was in general, right? So we'll hang around after school and just try and buy time. And there was one particular day after school, we were just being silly, and I think we kind of took it too far and just created a bit of harm. Not a bit of harm, but we hurt someone. Not bad, but bad enough for us to get in trouble for it. So
the boy was okay. He and Reggie were soon friends again, but that day there was a fight. Did it ever cross your mind that you might potentially hurt someone, or you might be crossing a line?
No, like you don't feel like you don't set out to say I'm going to go and hurt someone today. Like it wasn't a thing where they set out to do it, or we set out to do it. I think it was just we thought we were having fun, and it turned out we wasn't. Someone else saw what we were doing, and we were wearing our school uniforms, and reported us to the school. And I remember being in science class, and a teacher coming into the class, calling my name, and then the whole class was like, ooh, and then you stand up, you take your walk of shame to the door. So then there was a police car, went inside. The station was literally a 2-minute drive from the school. And then they called my mum. My mum had to come pick me up. And then, they explained to my mum what like we all did, and it just unfolded from there.
And at that point, when you were in police custody and they were telling you about the implications of your actions, what was your thought process?
We had like the interview, and afterwards, like obviously went back to school, and in the school, like we all got excluded for the actions and stuff, but then we were allowed back, and it wasn't like a permanent exclusion, like a temporary exclusion. I think because my mum was like super supportive and she was just asking the right questions, they were obviously like, nothing's gonna like go in the record or anything. It's like it's nothing that serious, but you need to, like, if you do it again, then it could, kind of thing. And they were trying to show us that you don't want to go down this path. And I remember sitting in the cell waiting for my mum, and I was seeing like the tag names of some of the people that I knew, and I was sitting there thinking, how am I? Like, why am I here? Like, I'm seeing people's names, and I'm thinking, this guy's a bad guy. Like, I know this guy's tag name, and this guy's a bad guy, and I never saw myself as a bad guy. I think from there, it was a real turning point for me, just mentally. I thought to myself, Mum, like, I didn't want my mum to see me go through that again. And the reason why I reference my mum a lot is because she was addicted to alcohol, but then she became sober, and she was really trying to develop in her life and move away from the things that she was involved in and stuff. And I saw her trying to make an effort. So I thought, if my mum's trying, then I need to try and do something. So from then, I went back into school, and I just thought, I'm going to get my head down and just concentrate on what I need to concentrate on.
Reggie did get his head down, and at 16, his hard work paid off when Woking Football Club, a team just outside of London, offered him a professional contract. The experience living away from home widened his perspective, gave him an opportunity to focus on his Christian faith, and he started to go to church regularly. But as things were transforming for Reggie in Woking, changes were also happening at home. I kind of want to find out about your relationship with your dad. What was that like?
When I was younger, I wouldn't say I had a real relationship with him. He was around, but I never, it wasn't really someone that I would seek counsel from, or someone that I would go to and ask for help for stuff. At the age of about 15, he left. 14 actually, he left.
Was there a particular reason?
Yeah, I think it just everything that was happening at home probably got too much. So then he left and moved to Northampton. Like, just the arguments, the violence and stuff. And I think he just kind of called it quits and left. So one day mom said left. So one day, part of me was quite happy because it meant that the arguments and the violence and stuff would stop. But the other half of me was a bit confused. And I never really processed it when I was younger. I don't think I remember feeling any type of emotion. I just thought, well, this is good because there's not going to be any arguments and stuff happening. But when I was 16, he came back. So he was away for 3 years. I remember when my mom said he's coming back, she just said, go downstairs and help your dad bring stuff back up. My sister and I, what do you mean bringing stuff back up? What's happening here?
So on both occasions, you've just been
Both occasions I've been, he's gone. He's coming back.
got
Yeah. It's like, okay, make your mind up kind of thing. Are you going or coming? I just remember the feeling when he came back was very different to when he left. It wasn't as hostile. I was not happier, but I felt like I realized the impacts of not having role models. Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously realized, okay, you need guidance. And when my dad came back, I was thinking, oh, maybe things will be different. I think there was an element of hope. Haven't seen him for a couple of years. Maybe he's not drinking. Maybe he was someone that I could talk to, or I kind of longed for that male role model without knowing. So when I heard and saw that he was coming back, I thought maybe this could be it.
So your dad's back.
Yeah.
A shock return.
Yeah, shock is like EastEnders moment.
What sort of things would you and your dad do together?
Just talk and sit down and chill, and he was big on the news. Watch news all day, and when I was younger, I remember hating it. Coming home from school and seeing news on the TV, I just wanted to watch Nickelodeon or Disney Channel or sports or something, and he would just watch the news over and over and over again. But if I came home and he was watching news, I'd just sit down and watch with him, and we'll just talk. And if we were watching football, he was a Chelsea fan, and I'm an Arsenal fan, so there was always that feud.
Oh no!
At home, exactly, yeah. But it helped us to grow closer as well, right? So yeah, we started to talk more, bond more. He was still drinking heavily, and he never really got back on his feet in terms of work. So it meant that he was drinking for longer. So that was tough to see, but it never got to me like it did when I was younger.
Your relationship is growing strong, but Father's Day 2013, something happens.
Yeah, it was Father's Day. I went to his room to wake him up. The day before was a Saturday, and he responded, but I thought he was just super tired. So I left him. When I was getting ready, he came into the living room and just collapsed on the sofa. And he was a diabetic, so I thought it was his diabetes playing up, and maybe he needed his insulin or his tablets. But then I called my mum, she was in the kitchen, she was cooking, and she came in and said, you go to church and I'll call the ambulance just to make sure that everything's all right. So I went to church, my mum called the ambulance, and then after church I called my mum for the hospital details, went to the hospital, and he was in a bed and there was wires attached and everything was going on, the machines and numbers on the machines, and I didn't know what anything meant. But my cousin was there with me and he had been there for some hours, and he said, oh, it's fine, like they're just monitoring him, he'll be back tomorrow. So we left the hospital, and the next day was a Monday. I went to training, I went to study, and then I called my mum for the hospital details again because I wanted to go and see him. But then my mum said, come home first so that we can all go together. So then I went home, and even on the way home, I didn't think anything of it. I got home, dropped my bag down, and then I remember walking into the living room. My mum was sitting there with, like my mum's close friends, but we call them aunties, sitting down, and then it was so quiet. Like you could hear a pin drop in that room, so airy. And I sat down slowly, so I was thinking, what's happening? And then my mum just tried, like she couldn't even look in my face. She was looking down, and then she looked at me and said, oh, like Dad didn't make it, and he passed away. And then I remember sitting there just like quiet, and I repeated it back to my mum saying, like, what do you mean, like Dad's dead? It felt like a dream. I had so many different feelings, emotions. I ran out the house, and I had no real direction in terms of where I was going to go. I was just walking around. I got on the first bus I saw, and I remember bursting into tears on the bus. And then I got off the bus, and I just ended up at church. And I walked into church, and I sat there for hours.
What were you thinking about?
I was trying to make sense of what happened. Try to see like what I could do to help my family. Should I continue playing football? Because is football going to be like a viable option to support my family? I had friends who were much better than me when I was growing up. They played for like your Arsenals, Chelseas and stuff, and I saw that when they didn't get offered a contract, they didn't have a backup plan. They didn't have anything that they could fall back on, and they were doing things that they didn't want to do. Not illegal things, but career-wise, they weren't doing what they wanted to do. And I weighed all of these things up and said, I think there's more risk pursuing this than there is certainty in doing this. When I thought about the life that I wanted to provide for myself and for my family. So I decided to stop playing football. Started to Google how to make money. I kind of wanted to stay away from anything that required me to study further than like 18. Because I didn't really see myself as like academically bright, so I didn't want to study beyond
University was just out the equation.
University was never ever an option.
Oh,
like at the time,
yeah,
I had never been so sure of something in my life. University was never ever an option. I was never ever going to go to university, like ever.
So you didn't go to university?
I did go to university. We'll get to that point. I did end up going to university.
Yeah,
but at that age, it was never a thing for me, ever. Those searches weren't working, so I thought I need to go and do my own primary research. I wanted to go and find what skills wealthy people had that allowed them to become rich. And my thinking behind that was, if it worked for them, then it would work for me. Yeah. So if I go and ask these rich people, what skills do you have that's allowed you to be where you are today? And they said, I was really good at this or really good at that. And I found a correlation between the people that I asked. Yeah. Then if I was to build those things, then hopefully that would work for me. So I researched in Google richest areas in London and made a list of 5 areas. And I said, one day I'm going to go to these areas and ask rich people what they did to be rich and what skills they had that allowed them to amass wealth. And that was what I did.
Okay, so
what you said
Mm.
is so simple,
Mm.
but it's brilliant. There's got to be some sort of inspiration.
My sister was quite big on reality TV, and there was a comedian called Joan Rivers who sadly passed away some years ago. She had tons of different shows on TV, but one of her shows was called How'd You Get So Rich? It's supposed to be based on like her comedy, right? So what she does is she lives in like LA or whatever, and she goes to people that have a Louis Vuitton bag, or if they drive a fancy car, they'll be like, hey, how'd you get rich? And then obviously it's staged, so they'll take her to their house and then show them around their house and then show them like the value of their properties and stuff, and then explain to that person how they got rich. I saw a lot of practicality in what she was doing. So although my sister was watching it because it was funny and it was lighthearted and it was a good show,
You was taking notes.
I was taking notes. I was thinking, hold on, she's just going to people and asking them how they became rich.
Yeah.
And although I didn't want to know, I didn't really care about what they had in terms of assets, I wanted to know about them. Like, they've done something that's allowed them to get that. So if I can replicate what they have done, then all of that will follow anyway. The second came after, where I was again in church, and there's a passage of scripture that says, ask and it'll be given to you, seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be opened unto you. I think those two were the real golden sources of where the idea came from. Joan Rivers and scripture.
Two strong sources.
Yeah, exactly.
At Fred Meyer Pharmacy, our pharmacists are vaccine experts. Don't know what you need? We can help. We have COVID, shingles, pneumonia, and more vaccines. Wondering if you're covered? Fred Meyer accepts most insurance plans. You heard it right. Our vaccine experts make it easy to get vaccinated so you can keep being an expert in what you're passionate about. Fred Meyer, a world of care is in store. Learn more at fredmeyer.com/vaccines. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details.
I'm Natalia Melman-Petrozella, and from the BBC, this is Extreme, Peak Danger.
The most beautiful mountain in the world.
If you die on the mountain, you stay on the mountain.
This is the story of what happened when 11 climbers died on one of the world's deadliest mountains, K2, and of the risks we'll take to feel truly alive.
If I tell all the details, you won't believe it anymore.
Extreme, Peak Danger. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
So Reggie had a plan. Travel to London's wealthiest borough, Kensington and Chelsea, and ask its residents, how did you get so rich?
And started asking random people on the streets first what they did to become wealthy. Majority of people weren't stopping to talk to me, to be completely honest with you. But I think after the first rejection, it wasn't that bad. The first person I spoke to rejected me.
Yeah.
And I think once I got past the first rejection, I was like, that's it. Like, it was just a no. Okay, fine. We'll go again. I was walking and saw this big apartment building, which I thought belonged to one person. It didn't. So I walked in and I started speaking to the person who I thought it belonged to, but he was just the concierge person. And I asked him the question, what did you do to live here and to own this? And I think he loved me asking him, because he went on and on and on. And as he was talking, I thought, hold on, you don't live here and you don't own this, so you're not my target market. And I remember talking to this guy for about 7 to 9 minutes. And then I left the conversation, like respectfully left the conversation. And so I was just thinking, what a waste of time. I just wasted 10 minutes of my life, and I need to get back on track and just start asking people again. But as I left the conversation, I walked across the road and I saw a gentleman with an Aston Martin. And I asked him, what skills do you possess that's allowed you to afford this car? And he gave me some sound advice. His advice was to study hard in school, get experience abroad if I can. Just like genuine hard work. After the conversation, I walked off, and then he pulled up beside me in his car and pulled out like a wad of cash from his side pocket and gave me £40 for asking him the question.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was £40 richer in Kensington walking around, but asking people on the streets wasn't working, so I decided to go and knock on people's doors. People would answer the door to me via the intercom, and when I said what I was there for, they would like shut the intercom. But then I continued knocking on houses, and there was a particular street I went down. The first door didn't open, and the second door, a lady speaks to me through the intercom, and she can see me because she's got like a ring door thing, so she can see me. And she's talking to me through the ring door bell, and she asks if what I'm doing is part of a school project. I said, no, I'm here by myself. I'm doing it off my own back. And then she cancels the intercom, and then doing it off my own back. And then for about 20 seconds. And at that point, I don't know whether
I'm pausing the podcast. I want to ask Gemini AI to speculate on some things. Testing. Gemini, given the following facts, I want you to speculate some things. One, the FBI's repeated statements since December that they expect to be arresting officers next month. Keep in mind that can change based on the actions of those officers. Comma, the FBI has confirmed that those people they plan on prosecuting with multiple counts of felony kidnapping, like Mrs. 80 plus years in prison, they would love to prosecute for aggravated kidnapping, which will kick in the week of February 23rd. Unit 207 shut off the mic, probably because they're trying to hack Gemini like they like to do. Okay, I typed it all out and submitted it. The full question.